So this keyboard's super satisfying to use. Let's talk about it. The Blade 75 is just an absolute chunk, most notably due to the aluminium body and metal plate in the rear of the keyboard. It feels super premium, which is really good to see, especially as we've just checked out the insanely expensive GMMK Pro 3 with the aluminium body, and that can cost over 4 times as much as this Blade 75, which cost just £82 at the time of making this video on the MECHLANDS website, linked down below. Being made from a slab of aluminium though, it does make this keyboard pretty heavy, which can get a little annoying if you're someone who likes to shuffle their keyboard around the desk. But it also does mean that if you found a position that you are comfortable with, it's not going to go anywhere. There's 81 keys, which equates to a 75% layout, which will definitely be good for most people, hence the Blade 75 name. It basically means that you've got no number pad, but still retain your function keys down the right hand side. Now the delete key is in a bit of an annoying place next to the rotary knob in the corner, and I must say I do hit the home key more times than I'd like to admit, thinking it's the delete key, but that's something that I personally have got to get used to. It's just something I've not seen on a keyboard before. Now in terms of its keys though, they are gasket mounted, giving a very smooth typing experience, and there are stabilizers used again to keep typing as comfortable as possible, which I must say is a very nice feeling. Though I do feel like I'm probably going to go back on what I usually say when it comes to sound performance on keyboards. And the keyboard here uses MECHLAND's own Verdant switches with an operational force of 52 and 5 gram force and a bottom out force of 50 and 5 gram force. Pre-travel does sit at 1.8 to 0.4 millimeters, and total travel isn't really massive by any means, sitting at 3.8 to 0.4 millimeters. It's incredibly clacky, and I'm not really usually a fan of that kind of thing, though the noise here does really come down to how heavy you type. If you are a heavy-handed typer, the clackiness isn't too great, but if you type softly, the sound profile is actually quite satisfying. Just listen to this. The Blade 75 is using multiple layers of padding, including sandwich foam, an IPXC switch pad, and PET film. MECHLANDS do call it sound enhancing material, and while, yeah, I suppose the clack of this keyboard is enhanced somewhat, maybe, it's not hugely off-putting, but that definitely comes down to what you prefer to listen to. It's satisfying, it really is, and it sounds nowhere near as horrific as some of the more well-known brands' plastic key mechanical keyboards. Looking at you, Razer. The clackiness of my old Black Widow V3 sounded horrific compared to this. And it's just such a really satisfying clack, if there is such a thing. However, if this noise profile isn't really for you, then there is the chance to change it, as the board is completely hot swappable, so you can go mad with your own switches if you want to, without the need to do any kind of soldering, which is great. Even though the keycaps are double shot PBT, unfortunately they're not shine through keycaps as standard, and I must say I do miss it, especially when gaming in darker environments and I need to quickly glance at my keyboard. Yes, unfortunately, I am one of those gamers now. It has got south-facing RGB backlighting though, which is nice and subtle. Now I've still got it on the default static teal color it came with, and it actually does, I think, look quite nice with the green keycaps the Blade 75 came with, though there are a number of effects that you can choose from. In terms of connectivity, it uses Bluetooth 5.0, a 2.4 GHz wireless dongle, or a USB Type-C cable if that's more your thing, of which both the dongle and cable come supplied. No coil cable here though, just the standard braided one. It's got a 4000 mAh battery, which is seemingly quite standard now with all of these keyboards that I've been looking at, and while it is wireless, it is nice to have. I must say the battery doesn't really last a decent amount of time here, and I'm reaching for a charging cable a bit more than I'd ideally like. I do blame the LEDs for this, they're pretty bright and thus sapping a little bit more battery. Also, I must say now that if you do plug in this keyboard using a USB cable and leave it on the 2.4 GHz connection on the back of the keyboard, it will not charge. Now change it to the USB input using the slider at the back, and for the most part though, I use it on a wireless connection and I've not really noticed any kind of lag or misclicks. It does have NKRO anti-ghosting features and a 1000 Hz polling rate for this. And for gaming though, on this keyboard, it is incredibly solid. Again, because it doesn't feel like it really misses a beat at all, and the fact that it sticks to my mousepad, being a cheap one from Amazon, it does the trick for me and my style of gaming. The size of the Blade 75 is decent too, and I could reach everything I needed without scrunching my hands up. There's also a very basic driver to power the keyboard, which gives you options for things like key settings, your macros, key sensitivity, FN settings, and also your lighting effects. As I said, it is fairly basic and a far cry from the drivers we've seen for HE keyboards now. Still, for gaming, it's a solid choice and one that performed well for me anyway in things like Overwatch 2 and Foxhole, which I've been getting into a bit for the moment, and Delta Force as well. Even though that game is, albeit a little bit chaotic, it is still very good. So the MECHLANDS Blade 75 is a fairly decent quality keyboard with an extremely satisfying typing experience. It sounds brilliant in my opinion, and the lighting effects work well as well, though I would have liked to have seen some shine through keycaps, but because they can be changed, I could potentially get some and use, so there is that. And the cost-wise, £84 on the MECHLANDS website, that's pretty decent. Go and get one, I don't think you'll regret it.